Hello, I'm Dire Wolf, and we are just going to go straight into the next couple chapters of the Red Pyramid. So, we're on chapter 5, and we are back to Carter narrating. And we were just leaving for... So, they have been sent away from England for their own good. So, let's see what happens. Chapter 5. We meet the monkey. There's a monkey. I want to know about the monkey. Alright. Like I said, Carter is narrating this one. It's Carter again. Sorry. We had to turn off the tape for a while because we were being followed by... Well, we'll get to that later. Sadie was telling you how we left London, right? So anyway, we followed Amos down to the weird boat docked at the quayside. I cradled Dad's work bag under my arm. I still couldn't believe he was gone. I felt guilty leaving London without him, but I believed Amos about one thing. Right now, Dad was beyond our help. I didn't trust Amos, but I figured if I wanted to find out what had happened to Dad, I was going to have to go along with him. He was the only one who seemed to know anything. Now, if you remember, Amos is apparently their dad's brother. Amos stepped aboard the reed boat. Sadie jumped right on, but I hesitated. I'd seen boats like this on the Nile before, and they never seemed very sturdy. It was basically woven together from coils of plant fiber, like a giant floating rug. I figured the torches at the front couldn't be a good idea, because if we didn't sink, we'd burn. At the back, the tiller was manned by a little guy wearing Amos's black trench coat and hat. The hat was shoved down onto his head so I couldn't see his face. His hands and feet were lost in the folds of the cloak. "How does this thing move?" I asked Amos. "You've got no sail." "Trust me." Amos offered me a hand. The night was cold, but when I stepped on the boat, I suddenly felt warmer, as if the torchlight were casting a protective glow over us. In the middle of the boat was a hut made from woven mats. From Sadie's arms, Muffin sniffed at it and growled. "Take a seat inside," Amos suggested. "The trip might be a little rough." "I'll stand, thanks," Sadie nodded at the little guy in back. "Who's your driver?" Amos acted as if he hadn't heard the question. "Hang on, everyone!" He nodded to the steersman, and the boat lurched forward. The steersman wears Amos's hat and coat, and that's all they can see of him. And he didn't answer about it. There's something up with that helmsman. Something up. Alright. The feeling was hard to describe. You know that tingle in the pit of your stomach when you're on a roller coaster and it goes into free fall? Not really. It was kind of like that, except we weren't falling, and the feeling didn't go away. The boat moved with astounding speed. The lights of the city blurred, then we were swallowed in a thick fog. Strange sounds echoed in the dark, slithering and hissing, distant screams, voices whispering in languages I didn't understand. Kind of reminds me of Willy Wonka's boat ride in the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I wouldn't know about the remake. I didn't really watch that one. The tingling turned to nausea. The sounds got louder until I was about to scream myself. Then suddenly the boat slowed. The noises stopped, and the fog dissipated. City lights came back, brighter than before. Above us loomed a bridge, much taller than any bridge in London. My stomach did a slow roll. To the left I saw a familiar skyline, the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building. "Impossible," I said. "That's New York." Well, there's a fast way to travel. Sadie looked as green as I felt. She was still cradling Muffin, whose eyes were closed. The cat seemed to be purring. "It can't be," Sadie said. "We only traveled a few minutes." And yet here we were, sailing up the East River right under the Williamsburg Bridge. We glided to a stop next to a small dock on the Brooklyn side of the river. In front of us was an industrial yard filled with piles of scrap metal and old construction equipment. In the center of it all, right at the water's edge, rose a huge factory warehouse heavily painted with graffiti, the windows boarded up. "That is not a mansion," Sadie said. Her powers of perception are really amazing. Look again. Amos pointed to the top of the building. How did you? My voice failed me. I wasn't sure why I hadn't seen it before, but now it was obvious. A 5-story mansion perched on the roof of the warehouse. Like another layer of a cake. You couldn't build a mansion up there. Long story, Amos said, but we needed a private location. And is this the East Shore? Sadie asked. You said something about that in London. My grandparents living on the East Shore. Yes, very good, Sadie. In ancient times, the east bank of the Nile was always the side of the living. The side where the sun rises. The dead were buried west of the river. It was considered bad luck, even dangerous, to live there. The tradition is still strong among our people. That pause before our people says, not necessarily human to me. If you're gonna pause before you say our people, it makes me think you's not human. So, are they related to the gods in some way? Because I really think they are. There's something going on with them. Definitely magic. Obviously, London to New York in a few minutes. Definitely some magic and I don't know what else going on. Our people, I asked. But Sadie muscled in with another question. So you can't live in Manhattan, she asked. Amos's brow furrowed as he looked across at the Empire State Building. Manhattan has other problems. Other gods. It's best we stay separate. Manhattan has other gods? As in, the Greek gods, maybe? Because, there's, in the Percy Jackson series, there's, yeah. So that's how they work at having multiple gods from multiple... Oh, don't worry. They stay in Manhattan. We stay over here. Seriously? Ooh. Alrighty then. Other what? Sadie demanded. Nothing. Right. Nothing. Amos walked past us to the steersman. He plucked off the man's hat and coat, and there was no one underneath. I said something was up with him. The steersman simply wasn't there. Amos put on his fedora, folded his coat over his arm, then waved toward a metal staircase that wound all the way up the side of the warehouse to the mansion on the roof. All ashore, he said, and welcome to the 21st gnome. And welcome to the 21st gnome. Gnome? I asked as we followed him up the stairs. Like those little runty guys? Heavens, no, Amos said. I hate gnomes. They smell horrible. But you said gnome, N-O-M-E, as in a district, a region. Okay. I didn't know that. I know quite a bit of vocabulary, but that one I did not know. I wonder if that's where Nome, Alaska gets their name. Anyway. Alright. N-O-M-E, as in a district, a region. The term is from ancient times when Egypt was divided into 42 provinces. Today the system is a little different. We've gone global. The world is divided into 360 gnomes. Egypt, of course, is the first. Greater New York is the 21st. Sadie glanced at me and twirled her finger around her temple. Loony. Except I don't think he is. No, Sadie, Amos said without looking back. I'm not crazy. There's much you need to learn. We reached the top of the stairs. Looking up at the mansion, it was hard to understand what I was seeing. The house was at least 50 feet tall, built of enormous limestone blocks and steel-framed windows. There were hieroglyphs engraved around the windows, and the walls were lit up so the place looked like a cross between a modern museum and an ancient temple. But the weirdest thing was that if I glanced away, the whole building seemed to disappear. I tried it several times just to be sure. If I looked for the mansion from the corner of my eye, it wasn't there. I had to force my eyes to refocus on it, and even that took a lot of willpower. Well, obviously, because other people would notice a mansion on top of a warehouse. Kind of obvious there's some kind of magic that keeps it from being seen all the time. Amos stopped before the entrance, which was the size of a garage door. Holy big entrance. Okay. Stopped before the entrance, which was the size of a garage door. A dark, heavy square of timber with no visible handle or lock. Carter, after you. How do you think? Great. Another mystery. Yeah, no kidding. I was about to suggest we ram Amos's head against it and see if that worked. Well. Then I looked at the door again, and I had the strangest feeling. Introducing him to his powers. I stretched out my arm, slowly, without touching the door. I raised my hand, and the door followed my movement, sliding upward until it disappeared into the ceiling. That would be so cool, just open. Open sesame! Without having to sound like a dork. Good thing I don't mind. Sadie looked stunned. How? I don't know, I admitted, a little embarrassed. Motion sensors, maybe? Interesting. Amos sounded a little troubled. Not the way I would have done it, but very good. Remarkably good. Thanks, I think. Sadie tried to go inside first, but as soon as she stepped on the threshold, Muffin wailed and almost clawed her way out of Sadie's arms. Ooh, Kitty doesn't like the mansion. Sadie stumbled backwards. What was that about, Cat? Oh, of course, Amos said. My apologies. He put his hand on the cat's head and said very formally, You may enter. The cat needs permission, I asked. Apparently whatever special creature it is needs permission. Special circumstances, Amos said, which wasn't much of an explanation, but he walked inside without saying another word. We followed, and this time Muffin stayed quiet. Oh my God. Sadie's jaw dropped. She craned her neck to look at the ceiling, and I thought the gum might fall out of her mouth. Yes, Amos said. This is the great room. Great room. Must be impressive. I could see why he called it that. The cedar-beamed ceiling was 4 stories high. Holy cow. Held up by curved stone pillars engraved with hieroglyphs. A weird assortment of musical instruments and ancient Egyptian weapons decorated the walls. 3 levels of balconies ringed the room, with rows of doors all looking out on the main area. The fireplace was big enough to park a car in, with a plasma screen TV above the mantel and massive leather sofas on either side. On the floor was a snakeskin rug, except it was 40 feet long and 15 feet wide, bigger than any snake. Except, mythological ones. I really want to know what snake it came from now. Outside, through glass walls, I could see the terrace that wrapped around the house. It had a swimming pool, a dining area, and a blazing fire pit. And at the far end of the great room was a set of double doors marked with the Eye of Horus and chained with 6 padlocks. I wondered what could possibly be behind them. Then the real showstopper was the statue in the center of the great room. It was 30 feet tall, made of black marble. I could tell it was an Egyptian god because the figure had a human body and an animal's head. Ooh, I do remember that. Most Egyptian gods had animals' heads. Okay, so this one had the human body and animal's head, like a stork or a crane, with a long neck and a really long beak. I have no clue who that was. I don't know the gods that well, but yeah, they all had animal heads. Which I think is really cool. The god was dressed ancient style in a kilt, sash, and neck collar. He held a scribe's stylus in one hand and an open scroll in the other, as if he had just written the hieroglyphs inscribed there. An ankh, the Egyptian looped cross, with a rectangle traced around its top. Okay. So obviously whoever this god is some kind of scribe, because he's pictured, giant statue. He's got a scroll and a stylus. Basically an ancient pen. That's it, Sadie exclaimed. Per Ankh! Ah. I stared at her in disbelief. All right, how can you read that? I don't know, she said, but it's obvious, isn't it? The top one is shaped like the floor plan of a house. What? How did you get that? Come my thought. It's just a box. The thing was, she was right. I recognized the symbol, and it was supposed to be a simplified picture of a house with a doorway. But that wouldn't be obvious to most people, especially people named Sadie. Yet she looked absolutely positive. It's a house, she insisted, and the bottom picture is the Ankh, the symbol for life. Per Ankh, the house of life. Aha. Yep, that does sound like an organization that would, protect people from ancient Egyptian magic. Very good, Sadie. Amos looked impressed. And this is a statue of the only god still allowed in the House of Life. At least normally. Do you recognize him, Carter? Only god still allowed in the House of Life. At least normally. I'm flashing back to Carter being called the one creature, whatever, referring to Carter like yeah, like he was someone special. Okay, so supposed to be this god with the bird head, long neck, long beak, is the only one allowed in the House of Life. But currently, obviously, there's another god being allowed, which I'm gonna say has something to do with the three of them. Just then it clicked. The bird was an ibis, an Egyptian river bird. Oh, I think I've heard of those. Thoth. Thoth. So I'm going to pronounce it Thoth. I said, the god of knowledge. He invented writing. I said he had something to do with writing. Invented writing. Well, thank you, Thoth. Indeed, Amos said. Why the animal heads? Sadie asked. All those Egyptian gods have animal heads. They look so silly. Hey, I think it looks cool. They don't normally appear that way, Amos said. Not in real life. Real life? I asked. Come on, you sound like you've met them in person. Who says he hasn't? Amos's expression didn't reassure me. He looked as if he were remembering something unpleasant. Yeah. The gods could appear in many forms, usually fully human or fully animal, but occasionally as a hybrid form like this. They are primal forces, you understand, a sort of bridge between humanity and nature. Ooh. They are depicted with animal heads to show that they exist in two different worlds at once. Do you understand? Not even a little, Sadie asked. Sadie said. I understand. It's, they're both human and part of nature. So, I mean, it shows that by, putting the animal, having them have their animal head on their human body, even though they didn't necessarily go around like that all the time. It would be like if the Greek gods were the Greek gods were shown with the head of the animal they were said to, really connect with. So like the one that's popping in my head right now, Athena with an owl head, because Athena and owls went together. That kind of thing. So they, made sure except that it looks to me like the Egyptians were a little more in tune with that animal part of them. They were part animal. I mean, kind of. It was really a part of them, whereas with the Greek god, it was just kind of like a symbol. Alright. Amos didn't sound surprised. Yes, we have much training to do. At any rate, the god before you, Thoth, founded the House of Life, for which this mansion is the regional headquarters. Or at least, it used to be. I'm the only member left in the 21st gnome. Or I was, until you two came along. I'm, gonna guess it's a, inherited position? As in, your family was, so now you are. Hang on. I had so many questions I could hardly think where to start. What is the House of Life? Why is Thoth the only god allowed here? And why are you... Carter, I understand how you feel. Amos smiled sympathetically. But these things are better discussed in daylight. You need to get some sleep, and I don't want you to have nightmares. You think I can sleep? Meow! Muffin stretched in Sadie's arms and let loose a huge yawn. Oops. Meow! That's the best I could do. Amos clapped his hands. Khufu! Khufu! I like that name. Khufu! It's Khufu. Ones that I have to just guess on the pronunciation, I am going to try and spell out for you, just if you want to look it up yourself for something. I thought he'd sneezed, because Khufu is a weird name. Weird, but cool. But then a little dude about 3 feet tall with gold fur and a purple shirt came clambering down the stairs. It took me a second to realize it was a baboon wearing an LA Lakers jersey. Awesome. Awesome. A golden baboon wearing an LA Lakers jersey. The baboon did a flip and landed in front of us. He showed off his fangs, made a sound that was half roar, half belch. His breath smelled like nacho-flavored Doritos. All I could think to say was, the Lakers are my home team. The baboon slapped his head with both hands and belched again. Oh, Khufu likes you, Amos said. You'll get along famously. And I just completely changed my voice for Amos right there. Oh, Khufu likes you, Amos said. You'll get along famously. Right, Sadie looked dazed. You've got a monkey butler. Why not? Muffin purred in Sadie's arms as if the baboon didn't bother her at all. Ah! Khufu grunted at her. Amos chuckled. He wants to go one-on-one with you, Carter, to, see your game. I shifted from foot to foot. Yeah, sure, maybe tomorrow, but how can you understand? Carter, I'm afraid you'll have a lot to get used to, Amos said. But if you're going to survive and save your father, you have to get some rest. Sorry, Sadie said. Did you say survive and save our father? Could you expand on that? Tomorrow, Amos said. We'll begin your orientation in the morning. Khufu, show them to their rooms, please. I really don't know what a baboon sounds like, I'm sorry. The baboon grunted. He turned and waddled up the stairs. Unfortunately, the Lakers jersey didn't completely cover his multicolored rear. We were about to follow when Amos said, "Carter, the work bag, please. It's best if I lock it in the library." I hesitated. I'd almost forgotten the bag on my shoulder, but it was all I had left of my father. I didn't even have our luggage because it was still locked up at the British Museum. Honestly, I'd been surprised that the police hadn't taken the work bag too, but none of them seemed to notice it. "You'll get it back," Amos promised, "when the time is right." He asked nicely enough, but something in his eyes told me that I really didn't have a choice. Yeah, I can understand being nervous about that. I handed over the bag. Amos took it gingerly as if it were full of explosives. "It might be." "See you in the morning." He turned and strode toward the chained-up doors. Now, why is the library chained up? Knowledge is power type thing? I don't know, but yeah, I'm not a fan of chaining libraries up. Come on. Library, books, let them read! Sorry. Alright, he turned and strode toward the chained-up doors. They unlatched themselves and opened just enough for Amos to slip through without showing us anything on the other side. Then the chains locked again behind him. I looked at Sadie, unsure what to do. Staying by ourselves in the great room with the creepy statue of Thoth didn't seem like much fun, so we followed Khufu up the stairs. Okay, so the chains are going to unlock for members of the House of Life. Then I'm okay with them being chained up, because I would guess there's information in there that they don't want anyone else getting, and obviously that's why they keep other weapons and magical items, because they're putting the work bag in there, which we've pretty much proven to be magical by now. Maybe not the bag itself, but certainly what's in it. Alright, Sadie and I got adjoining rooms on the 3rd floor, and I've got to admit, they were way cooler than any place I'd ever stayed before. Well, duh, it's a mansion, and you said you mostly stayed in, like, rundown hotels and stuff. I had my own kitchenette, fully stocked with my favorite snacks. I don't know what his favorite snacks are. I love that kind of magic. It's just like, yeah, we're just gonna make you comfortable. Ginger ale. No, Sadie, it's not an old person's soda. Be quiet. Twix and Skittles. It seemed impossible. How did Amos know what I liked? The TV, computer, and stereo systems were totally high-tech. The bathroom was stocked with my regular brand of toothpaste, deodorant, everything. The king-size bed was awesome, too, though the pillow was a little strange. Instead of a cloth pillow, it was an ivory headrest like I'd seen in Egyptian tombs. It was decorated with lions and, of course, more hieroglyphs. An ivory headrest. Interesting. I haven't seen what an Egyptian headrest would look like, I guess. It's not something you think of when you think of what did they use before pillows? Not one of those things I've ever thought of. The room even had a deck that looked out on New York Harbor with views of Manhattan and the Statue of Liberty in the distance, but the sliding glass doors were locked shut somehow. That was my first indication that something was wrong. I turned to look for Khufu, but he was gone. The door to my room was shut. I tried to open it, but it was locked. Ooh, they locked in. Doesn't it? Ooh. Sadie? I tried the door to her adjoining room, but it was locked too. "We're prisoners," she said. "Do you think can we trust him?" After all I'd seen today, I didn't trust anything, but I could hear the fear in Sadie's voice. It triggered an unfamiliar feeling in me, like I needed to reassure her. The idea seemed ridiculous. Sadie had always seemed so much braver than me, doing what she wanted, never caring about the consequences. I was the one who got scared, but right now it felt like I needed to play a role I hadn't played in a long, long time. Big brother. "It'll be okay," I tried to sound confident. "Look, if Amos wanted to hurt us, he could have done it by now. Try to get some sleep." "Carter?" "Yeah?" "It was magic, wasn't it? What happened to Dad at the museum? Amos's boat? This house? All of it's magic." "Well, don't. Of course it's magic. What did you think it was?" I think so. Again, what did you think it was? Magic is literally being shoved in your face. And you're going, oh, is it magic? Ugh. I could hear her sigh. Good, at least I'm not going mad. Well, I guess there is that. You could just think you're going mad. I guess if you were asking to confirm that you weren't going mad, I'll give you that. Don't let the bed bugs bite, I called, and I realized I hadn't said that to Sadie since we had lived together in Los Angeles, when Mom was still alive. Oh, that's sad. I miss Dad, she said. I hardly ever saw him, I know, but I miss him. My eyes got a little teary, but I took a deep breath. I was not going to go all week. Sadie needed me. Dad needed us. We'll find him, I told her. Pleasant dreams. I listened, but the only thing I heard was Muffin meowing and scampering around, exploring her new space. At least she didn't seem unhappy. I got ready for bed and crawled in. The covers were comfortable and warm, but the pillow was just too weird. It gave me neck cramps, so I put it on the floor and went to sleep without it. My first big mistake. It had hieroglyphs on it. And what, dogs or something too? Something. Lions. Sorry, not dogs. Lions. Decorated with lions and hieroglyphs. Protective, maybe? If he's saying that was his first big mistake, I'm gonna go with it was a protective thing. Alright. We are now on to Chapter 6. Breakfast with a Crocodile. So, we got the monkey butler, and we're going to have breakfast with a crocodile. Is he the chef? Alright. Still on Carter. How to describe it? Not a nightmare. It was much more real and frightening. As I slept, I felt myself go weightless. I drifted up, turned, and saw my own sleeping form below. I'm dying, I thought. But that wasn't it either. I wasn't a ghost. I had a new shimmering golden form with wings instead of arms. I was some kind of bird. No, Sadie, not a chicken. Will you let me tell the story, please? I knew I wasn't dreaming because I don't dream in color. I certainly don't dream in all 5 senses. The room smelled faintly of jasmine. I could hear the carbonation bubbles pinging in the can of ginger ale I'd opened on my nightstand. Heightened senses. Holy cow. I could feel a cold wind ruffling through my feathers, and I realized the windows were open. I didn't want to leave, but a strong current pulled me out of the room like a leaf in a storm. The lights of the mansion faded below me. The skyline of New York blurred and disappeared. I shot through the mist and darkness, strange voices whispering all around me. My stomach tingled as it had earlier that night on Amos's barge. Then the mist cleared, and I was in a different place. I was going to wait till the end of the paragraph and say, kind of like when you took the trip on the boat. Oh, wait, they already did that. Alright. I floated above a barren mountain. Far below, a grid of city lights stretched across the valley floor. Definitely not New York. It was nighttime, but I could tell I was in the desert. The wind was so dry, the skin on my face felt like paper. And I know that doesn't make sense, but my face felt like my normal face, as if that part of me hadn't transformed into a bird. Fine, Sadie, call me the Carter-headed chicken. Happy? Below me on a ridge stood 2 figures. They didn't seem to notice me, and I realized I wasn't glowing anymore. In fact, I was pretty much invisible, floating in the darkness. I couldn't make out the 2 figures clearly, except to recognize that they weren't human. Staring harder, I could see that one was short, squat, and hairless, with slimy skin that glistened in the starlight, like an amphibian standing on its hind legs. The other was tall and scarecrow skinny, with rooster claws instead of feet. Okay. I couldn't see his face very well, but it looked red and moist and, well, let's just say I was glad I couldn't see it better. Okay. Where is he? The toady-looking one croaked nervously. Hasn't taken a permanent host yet, the rooster-footed guy chided. He can only appear for a short time. You sure this is the place? Yes, fool, he'll be here as soon. A fiery form appeared on the ridge. Fiery form. And the two creatures fell to the ground, groveling in the dirt, and I prayed like crazy that I really was invisible. My lord, the toad said. Even in the dark, the newcomer was hard to see, just the silhouette of a man outlined in flames. What do they call this place? The man asked. And as soon as he spoke, I knew for sure he was the guy who'd attacked my dad at the British Museum. All the fear I'd felt at the museum came rushing back, paralyzing me. I remembered trying to pick up that stupid rock to throw, but I hadn't been able to do even that. I'd completely failed my dad. My lord, Roosterfoot said, the mountain is called Camelback. The city is Phoenix. The fireman laughed, a booming sound like thunder. Phoenix! How appropriate! And the desert so much like home. All it needs now is to be scoured of life. The desert should be a sterile place, don't you think? Well. Oh, yes, my lord. Oh, yes, my lord, the toady agreed. But what of the other four? Sorry, he said there was more that got out. He must not like it. Or maybe he's worried about them? One is already entombed, the fiery man said. The second is weak. She will be easily manipulated. That leaves only two, and they will be dealt with soon enough. Okay, definitely not worried about them. At least not for their health. Doesn't like them, obviously. Or doesn't want them interfering with whatever he's got planned. How? The toady asked. The fireman glowed brighter. You are an inquisitive little tadpole, aren't you? He pointed at the toad, and the poor creature's skin began to steam. Ooh. No! No! The toady begged. No! I could hardly watch. I don't want to describe it, but if you've heard what happens when cruel kids pour salt on snails, you'll have a pretty good idea of what happened to the toady. Soon there was nothing left. Oof. Roosterfoot took a nervous step back. I couldn't blame him. We will build my temple here, the fiery man said, as if nothing had happened. This mountain shall serve as my place of worship. When it is complete, I will summon the greatest storm ever known. I will cleanse everything. Everything. Ominous. Yes, my lord, Roosterfoot agreed quickly. And, if I may suggest, my lord, to increase your power. The creature bowed and scraped and moved forward as if he wanted to whisper in the fiery man's ear. Just when I thought Roosterfoot was going to become fried chicken for sure, he said something to the fiery dude that I couldn't make out, and the fiery dude burned brighter. Excellent! If you can do this, you will be rewarded. If not... I understand, my lord. Go then, the fiery man said. Unleash our forces. Start with the long necks. That should soften them up. Collect the younglings and bring them to me. I want them alive, before they have time to learn their powers. Do not fail me. The younglings, as in young children? Carter and Sadie? What you want to bet? Right. Do not fail me. No, lord. Phoenix, the fiery man mused. I like that very much. He swept his hand across the horizon as if he were imagining the city in flames. Soon I will rise from your ashes. It will be a lovely birthday present. Okay. Birthday present. So it will be a lovely birthday present and needing temple. I'm guessing, and then they were talking about before he came that he could only appear for a short time, hadn't taken a permanent host yet. I'm guessing that Fiery Dude is still kind of caught in an in-between state, and as soon as he becomes fully formed in our world, Phoenix is gonna fry. And that's just gonna be the beginning. Wait, build my temple here. Book's called Red Pyramid. Wanna guess what his temple's gonna be? Cause I gotta guess. He's gonna be a red pyramid. I woke with my heart pounding back in my own body. I felt hot, as if the fiery guy were starting to burn me. Then I realized that there was a cat on my chest. Mittens brought him back from whatever he was. Or, not Mitten. Wow, Muffin! I've read too many books with cats' names Mittens, apparently. Muffin stared at me, her eyes half closed. Meow. Meow? How did you get in? I muttered. I sat up, and for a second I wasn't sure where I was. Some hotel in another city? I almost called for my dad. And then I remembered. Yesterday, the museum, the sarcophagus, it all crashed down on me so hard I could barely breathe. Stop, I told myself. You don't have time for grief. And this is going to sound weird, but the voice in my head almost sounded like a different person. Older, stronger. Either that was a good sign or I was going crazy. Remember what you saw, the voice said. He's after you. You have to be ready. Fiery Dude needed a host. 4 others were released. 1 was entombed, which I'm guessing out of the 5 released, because it was Fiery Dude and 4 others. 1 of them went in the dad, hence the dad being called someone else. And I'm going to say 1 went in Carter, hence the weird thing with Carter and Fiery Dude, and now this mysterious voice that was older, stronger, different, and those things. I'm going to say one of the things released is in Carter, because they obviously need hosts. And yeah, that's my guess right now. That's what I'm thinking. I shivered. I wanted to believe I'd just had a bad dream, but I knew better. I'd been through too much in the last day to doubt what I'd seen. Good. He's learned not to doubt it. Somehow, I'd actually left my body while I'd slept. I'd been to Phoenix, thousands of miles away. The Fiery Dude was there. I hadn't understood much of what he'd said, but he talked about sending his forces to capture the younglings. Gee, wonder who that could be. Hey! He said almost exactly the same way I did. Who could that be? Muffin jumped off the bed and sniffed at the ivory headrest, looking up at me as if she were trying to tell me something. You can have it, I told her. It's uncomfortable. She butted her head against it and it stared at me accusingly. Meow. Whatever, cat. I got up and showered. When I tried to get dressed, I found that my old clothes had disappeared in the night. Well, that's a lovely thought. Everything in the closet was my size, but way different than what I was used to. Baggy drawstring pants and loose shirts, all plain white linen, and robes for cold weather. Kind of what the fellahin, the peasants in Egypt wear. It wasn't exactly my style. Fellahin? Fellahin. Fellahin. Peasants in Egypt. Well, when working with Egyptians, Sadie likes to tell me that I don't have a style. She complains that I dress like an old man. Button-down shirt, slacks, dress shoes. Okay, maybe, but here's the thing. My dad had always drilled into my head that I had to dress my best. I remember the first time he explained it to me. I was 10. We were on our way to the airport in Athens, and it was like 112 degrees outside. And I was complaining that I wanted to wear shorts and a t-shirt. Why couldn't I be comfortable? We weren't going anywhere important that day, just traveling. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. Carter, you're getting older. You're an African-American man. People will judge you more harshly, and so you must always look impeccable. Unfortunately, kind of got a point. It's unfortunate and needs to be gotten past, but our society isn't to that point yet, and they'll definitely, clothes make a bigger difference when you're African American than they do if you are Caucasian. It's stupid, but it's a fact. That isn't fair, I insisted. Fairness does not mean everyone gets the same, Dad said. Fairness means everyone gets what they need. And the only way to get what you need is to make it happen yourself. Do you understand? I told him I didn't, but still, I did what he asked, like hearing about Egypt and basketball and music, like traveling with only one suitcase. I dressed the way Dad wanted me to, because Dad was usually right. In fact, I'd never known him to be wrong, until the night at the British Museum. Anyway, I put on the linen clothes from the closet. The slipper shoes were comfortable, though I doubted they'd be much good to run in. The door to Sadie's room was open, but she wasn't there. Thankfully, my bedroom door wasn't locked anymore. Well, obviously not if the cat got in. Muffin joined me and we walked downstairs, passing a lot of unoccupied bedrooms on the way. The mansion could have easily slept 100 people, but instead it felt empty and sad. Oh, I wonder how many are supposed to be in the House of Life. Down in the great room, Khufu, the baboon, sat on the sofa with a basketball between his legs and a chunk of strange-looking meat in his hands. It was covered in pink feathers. Okay. ESPN was on the television, and Khufu was watching highlights from the games the night before. Hey, I said, though it felt a little weird talking to him. Lakers win? Khufu looked at me and patted his basketball like he wanted a game. Hug, hug! He had a pink feather hanging from his chin, and the sight made my stomach do a slow roll. Yeah, I said. We'll play later, okay? I could see Sadie and Amos out on the terrace eating breakfast by the pool. It should have been freezing out there, but the fire pit was blazing and neither Amos nor Sadie looked cold. I headed their way, then hesitated in front of the statue of Thoth. In the daylight, the bird-headed god didn't look quite so scary. Still, I could swear those beady eyes were watching me expectantly. What had the fiery god said last night? Something about catching us before we learned our powers? It sounded ridiculous, but for a moment I felt a surge of strength, like the night before when I'd opened the front door just by raising my hand. I felt like I could lift anything, even this 30-foot-tall statue if I wanted to. In a kind of trance, I stepped forward. Muffin meowed impatiently and butted my foot. The feeling dissolved. I'm really curious now. Is it like innate abilities in them? Or some of it's got to be innate abilities, definitely. So like that kind of felt like maybe possibly that whatever that came out and I think is kind of possessing him. I feel like kind of like possessing him, but I also feel like on our side type of possessing him, which is a little different than normal possessions, but anyway, so he's got some magic. And I feel like Muffin interferes when it's that that possession spirit, or I want to say spirit because I don't know what they are yet, but the possessed being that's kind of trying to work through him. I feel like that's when Muffin interferes, which leads credence to the whole, it's not a normal cat. Cats, very important in Egypt. Anyway. You're right, I told the cat. Stupid idea. Besides, I could smell breakfast now. French toast, bacon, hot chocolate. Ooh. And I couldn't blame Muffin for being in a hurry. I followed her out to the terrace. Ah, Carter, Amos said. Merry Christmas, my boy. Join us. Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten that this would have been Christmas. So much is happening for them. About time, Sadie grumbled. I've been up for ages. But she held my eyes for a moment, like she was thinking the same thing I was. Christmas. We hadn't spent a Christmas morning together since Mom died. I wondered if Sadie remembered how we used to make God's eye decorations out of yarn and popsicle sticks. God's eye decorations? Amos poured himself a cup of coffee. His clothes were similar to those he'd worn the day before, and I had to admit the guy had style. His tailored suit was made of blue wool. He wore a matching fedora, and his hair was freshly braided with dark blue lapis lazuli, one of the stones the Egyptians often used for jewelry. I wonder how he braided the stones into his hair. Well, I think people used to do that all the time. It's just not something that's common enough now that people really know how to do it. Maybe some people do. I'm just not that. Alright, getting off track. Anyway, even his glasses matched. The round lenses were tinted blue. The tenor sax rested on a stand near the fire pit, and I could totally picture him playing out here, serenading the East River. As for Sadie, she was dressed in a white linen pajama outfit like me. But somehow she'd managed to keep her combat boots. She probably slept with them on. She looked pretty comical with the red-streaked hair and the outfit, but since I wasn't dressed any better, I could hardly make fun of her. Amos, I asked? You didn't have any pet birds, did you? Khufu's eating something with pink feathers. Amos sipped his coffee. Sorry if that disturbed you. Khufu's very picky. He only eats foods that end in O. Doritos, burritos, flamingos. He was eating a flamingo. Okay. Wondered what kind of pink bird he was eating. Didn't even dawn on. Flamingo didn't come to my head. Not something you think of as a bird to be eaten. I blinked. Did you say Carter? Sadie warned. She looked a little queasy, like she'd already had this conversation. Don't ask. Okay, I said, not asking. I want to know. Please, Carter, help yourself. Amos waved toward a buffet table piled high with food. Then we can get started with the explanations. I didn't see any flamingo on the buffet table, which was fine by me. But there was just about everything else. I snagged some pancakes with butter and syrup, some bacon, and a glass of OJ. Then I noticed movement in the corner of my eye. I glanced at the swimming pool. Something long and pale was gliding just under the surface of the water. I almost dropped my plate. Is that? A crocodile, Amos confirmed. For good luck. He's albino, but please don't mention that. He's sensitive. A crocodile for good luck. Well, they probably have them in Egypt, so maybe I'd crocodile for good luck. That's one of those things that's like, really? His name is Philip of Macedonia, Sadie informed me. His name is Philip of Macedonia, Sadie informed me. I wasn't sure how Sadie was taking this all so calmly, but I figured if she wasn't freaking out, I shouldn't either. Well, probably because she's already gone through it all. That's a long name, I said. He's a long crocodile, Sadie said. Oh, and he likes bacon. I feel like she was quoting Amos there. To prove her point, she tossed a piece of bacon over her shoulder. Philip lunged out of the water and snapped up the treat. His hide was pure white and his eyes were pink. His mouth was so big he could have snapped up an entire pig. He's quite harmless to my friends, Amos assured me. In the old days, no temple would be complete without a lake full of crocodiles. They are powerful magic creatures. Good to know. Right, I said. So the baboon, the crocodile, any other pets I should know about? Amos thought for a minute. Visible ones? No, I think that's it. So there's some invisible creatures around. Good to know. I took a seat as far from the pool as possible. Muffin circled my legs and purred. I hoped she had enough sense to stay away from magic crocodiles named Philip. So Amos, I said between bites of pancake, explanations. Yes, he agreed. Where to start? Our dad, Sadie suggested. What happened to him? Amos took a deep breath. Julius was attempting to summon a god. Unfortunately, it worked. Is Fiery Dude a god? Did their dad get possessed by a god? Is Carter have a god inside of him right now? Ooh. It was kind of hard to take Amos seriously, talking about summoning gods while he spread butter on a bagel. Any god in particular, I asked casually, or did he just order a generic god? Sadie kicked me under the table. She was scowling as if she actually believed what Amos was saying. You don't, dude? Ugh. Amos took a bite of bagel. There are many Egyptian gods, Carter, but your dad was after one in particular. He looked at me meaningfully. Osiris, I remembered. When Dad was standing in front of the Roman stone, he said, Osiris come. But Osiris is a legend. He's make-believe. I wish that were true. Amos stared across the East River at the Manhattan skyline, gleaming in the morning sun. The ancient Egyptians were not fools, Carter. They built the pyramids. They created the first great nation-state. Their civilization lasted thousands of years. Yeah, I said, and now they're gone. Amos shook his head. A legacy that powerful does not disappear. Next to the Egyptians, the Greek and Romans were babies. Are modern nations like Great Britain and America? Blinks of an eye. The very oldest root of civilization, at least of Western civilization, is Egypt. Look at the pyramid on the dollar bill. Look at the Washington Monument, the world's largest Egyptian obelisk. Egypt is still very much alive, and so, unfortunately, are her gods. Come on, I argued. I mean, even if I believe there's a real thing called magic, believing in ancient gods is totally different. You're joking, right? But as I said it, I thought about the fiery guy in the museum. The way his face had shifted between human and animal, and the statue of Thoth, how its eyes had followed me. He's getting it. He's getting it. Carter, Amos said. The Egyptian would not have been stupid enough to believe in imaginary gods. The beings they described in their myths are very, very real. In the old days, the priests of Egypt would call upon these gods to channel their power and perform great feats. That is the origin of what we now call magic. Like many things, magic was first invented by the Egyptians. Each temple had a branch of magicians called the House of Life. Their magicians were famed throughout the ancient worlds. And you're an Egyptian magician? Amos nodded. So was your father. You saw it for yourself last night. I hesitated. It was hard to deny my dad had done some weird stuff at the museum. Some stuff that looked like magic. But he's an archaeologist, I said stubbornly. That's his cover story. You'll remember that he specialized in translating ancient spells, which are very difficult to understand unless you work magic yourself. Our family, the Kane family, has been part of the House of Life almost since the beginning, and your mother's family is almost as ancient. Wait, if the mother's family is almost... Why did the grandparents, insist on being oblivious? The Fausts? I tried to imagine Grandma and Grandpa Faust doing magic, but unless watching rugby on TV and burning cookies was magical, I couldn't see it. I can't either. They had not practiced magic for many generations, Amos admitted. Not until your mother came along, but yes, a very ancient bloodline. Ah, so that's why their family gave up magic. Sadie shook her head in disbelief. So now Mum was magic too? Are you joking? No jokes, Amos promised. The two of you combine the blood of two ancient families, both of which have a long, complicated history with the gods. You are the most powerful Kane children to be born in many centuries. Most powerful. And that's why you get your story. I tried to let that sink in. At the moment, I didn't feel powerful. I felt queasy. You're telling me our parents secretly worshipped animal-headed gods? I asked. Not worshipped, Amos corrected. By the end of the ancient times, Egyptians had learned that their gods were not to be worshipped. They are powerful beings, primeval forces, but they are not divine in the sense one might think of God. They are created entities, like mortals, only much more powerful. We can respect them, fear them, use their power, or even fight them to keep them under control. Different type of gods. Aha. Fight gods? Sadie interrupted. Constantly, Amos assured her, but we don't worship them. Thoth taught us that. I looked at Sadie for help. The old guy had to be crazy, but Sadie was looking like she believed every word. So, I asked, why did Dad break the Rosetta Stone? Oh, I'm sure he didn't mean to break it, Amos said. That would have horrified him. In fact, I imagine my brethren in London have repaired the damage by now. The curators will soon check their vaults and discover that the Rosetta Stone miraculously survived the explosion. But it was blown into 1,000,000 pieces, I said. How could they repair it? Amos picked up a saucer and threw it onto the stone floor. The saucer shattered instantly. That was to destroy, Amos said. I could have done it by magic. Hadi. But it's simpler just to smash it. And now, Amos held out his hand. Join. Hanem. A blue hieroglyphic symbol burned in the air above his palm. Well, see, now I would have called that 3 symbols, because we've got the owl in the middle there, the pitcher, and the stick-looking thing. All which come together to create the word join. How pitcher, owl, stick becomes join, I don't know. The pieces of saucer flew into his hand and reassembled like a puzzle, even the smallest bits of dust gluing themselves into place. Amos put the perfect saucer back on the table. Some trick, I managed. I tried to sound calm about it, but I was thinking of all the odd things that had happened to my dad and me over the years. Like those gunmen in the Cario Hotel who'd ended up hanging by their feet from a chandelier. Was it possible my dad had made that happen with some kind of spell? Yep, I'd say it was. Amos poured milk in the saucer and put it on the floor. Muffin came padding over. At any rate, your father would never intentionally damage a relic. He simply didn't realize how much power the Rosetta Stone contained. You see, as Egypt faded, its magic collected and concentrated into its remaining relics. Most of these, of course, are still in Egypt, but you can find some in almost every major museum. A magician can use these artifacts as focal points to work more powerful spells. I don't get it, I said. Amos spread his hands. I'm sorry, Carter. It takes years of study to understand magic, and I'm trying to explain it to you in a single morning. The important thing is, for the past 6 years, your father has been looking for a way to summon Osiris, and last night he thought he had found the right artifact to do it. Wait, why did he want Osiris? Sadie gave me a troubled look. Carter, Osiris was the Lord of the Dead. Dad was talking about making things right. He was talking about Mum. Sadie gets it. Oh, let's see if that was enough for Carter to get up. Suddenly the morning seemed colder. See, now he gets it. The fire pit sputtered and the wind coming off the river. He wanted to bring Mom back from the dead, I said. But that's crazy. Amos hesitated. It would have been dangerous, inadvisable, foolish, but not crazy. Your father is a powerful magician. If, in fact, that is what he was after, he might have accomplished it, using the power of Osiris. I stared at Sadie. You're actually buying this? You saw the magic at the museum. The fiery bloke. Dad summoned something from the stone. Yeah, I said, thinking of my dream. But that wasn't Osiris, was it? No, Amos said. Your father got more than he bargained for. He did release the spirit of Osiris. In fact, I think he successfully joined with the god. Ah, see? He joined with the god, and that's why he got put in the sarcophagus. Because he didn't have time to learn to use the powers yet. Joined with? Amos held up his hand. Another long conversation. For now, let's say he drew the power of Osiris into himself. But he never got the chance to use it because, according to what Sadie has told me, it appears that Julius released 5 gods from the Rosetta Stone. 5 gods who were all trapped together. I glanced at Sadie. You told him everything? He's going to help us, Carter. I wasn't quite ready to trust this guy, even if he was our uncle, but I decided I didn't have much choice. Okay, yeah, I said. The fire guide said something like you released all 5. What did he mean? Amos sipped his coffee. The faraway look on his face reminded me of my dad. I don't want to scare you. Too late. The gods of Egypt are very dangerous. For the last 2,000 years or so, we magicians have spent much of our time binding and banishing them whenever they appear. In fact, our most important law, issued by Chief Lector Iskandar in Roman times, forbids unleashing the gods or using their power. Your father broke that law once before. I'm guessing when he broke it once before was when their mother died. And then he thought breaking it again would bring her back. Because, of course, let's repeat the same mistake. Oh. Yeah, these powerful immortal beings that we've been trapping for years and years. Let's call them out. Makes perfect sense. Their dad's a freaking genius. Ugh. Sadie, see, I like Sadie. Sadie's face paled. Does this have something to do with Mum's death? Cleopatra's Needle in London? See, she comes to the same conclusions I do. I like Sadie. It has everything to do with that, Sadie. Your parents? Well, they thought they were doing something good. They took a terrible risk, and it cost your mother her life. Your father took the blame. He was exiled. I suppose you would say, banished. He was forced to move around constantly because the house monitored his activities. They feared he would continue his research, as indeed he did. So his father was running. Because he was forced to. I mean, kind of that. Don't stay in one place because then you'll set up shop. I thought about the times Dad would look over his shoulder as he copied some ancient inscriptions, or wake me up at 3 or 4 in the morning and insist it was time to change hotels, or warn me not to look in his work bag, or copy certain pictures from old temple walls, as if our lives depended on it. Is that why you never came round? Sadie asked Amos. Because Dad was banished? The house forbade me to see him. I loved Julius. It hurt me to stay away from my brother and from you children. But I could not see you, until last night when I simply had no choice but to try to help. Julius has been obsessed with finding Osiris for years. He was consumed with grief because of what happened to your mother. When I learned that Julius was about to break the law again, to try to set things right, I had to stop him. A second offense would have meant a death sentence. Unfortunately, I failed. I should have known he was too stubborn. So, does that mean even if they save their dad, the house will be like, nope. You broke the law one too many times. Yikes. I looked down at my plate. My food had gotten cold. Muffin leaped onto the table and rubbed against my hand. When I didn't object, she started eating my bacon. Last night at the museum, I said. The girl with the knife. the man with the forked beard. They were magicians too. From the House of Life? Yes, Amos said, keeping an eye on your father. You are fortunate they let you go. The girl wanted to kill us, I remembered, but the guy with the beard said, not yet. They don't kill unless it is absolutely necessary, Amos said. They will wait to see if you are a threat. Why would we be a threat? Sadie demanded. We're children. The summoning wasn't our idea. Amos pushed away his plate. There is a reason you two were raised separately. Because the Fausts took Dad to court, I said matter-of-factly, and Dad lost. It was much more than that, Amos said. The house insisted you two be separated. Your father wanted to keep you both, even though he knew how dangerous it was. Sadie looked like she'd been smacked between the eyes. He did? Of course. But the house intervened and made sure your grandparents got custody of you, Sadie. If you and Carter were raised together, you could become very powerful. Perhaps you have already sensed changes over the past day. I thought about the surges of strength I'd been feeling, and the way Sadie suddenly seemed to know how to read ancient Egyptian. Then I thought of something even farther back. Your 6th birthday, I told Sadie. The cake, she said immediately, the memory passing between us like an electric spark. At Sadie's 6th birthday party, the last one we'd shared as a family, Sadie and I had a huge argument. I don't remember what it was about. I think I wanted to blow out the candles for her. We started yelling. She grabbed my shirt. I pushed her. I remember Dad rushing toward us, trying to intervene, but before he could, Sadie's birthday cake exploded. Icing splattered the walls, our parents, the faces of Sadie's little 6-year-old friends. Dad and Mom separated us. They sent me to my room. Later they said we must have hit the cake by accident as we were fighting, but I knew we hadn't. Something much weirder had made it explode, as if it had responded to our anger. I remembered Sadie crying with a chunk of cake on her forehead, an upside-down candle stuck to the ceiling with its wick still burning, and an adult visitor, one of my parents' friends, his glasses speckled with white frosting. I turned to Amos. That was you. You were at Sadie's party. Vanilla icing, he recalled. Very tasty. But it was clear even then that you two would be difficult to raise in the same household. And so, I faltered, what happens to us now? I didn't want to admit it, but I couldn't stand the thought of being separated from Sadie again. She wasn't much, but she was all I had. You must be trained properly, Amos said, whether the house approves or not. Why wouldn't they approve? I asked. I will explain everything. Don't worry. But we must start your lessons if we are to stand any chance of finding your father and putting things right. Otherwise, the entire world is in danger. If we only knew where— Phoenix, I blurted out. Amos stared at me. What? Last night I had— well, not a dream exactly. I felt stupid, but I told him what had happened while I slept. Judging from Amos's expression, the news was even worse than I thought. You're sure, he said. Birthday present, he asked. Yeah, but what does that mean? And a permanent host, Amos said. He didn't have one yet? Well, that's what the rooster-footed guy said. That was a demon, Amos said. A minion of chaos. And if demons are coming through to the mortal world, we don't have much time. This is bad. Very bad. Okay. If he's freaking out, it's worse than I was thinking. Or now I'm thinking it's worse than what I was thinking. Because I don't get the feeling he freaks out at a whole lot. If you live in Phoenix, I said. Carter, our enemy won't stop in Phoenix. If he's grown so powerful so fast, what did he say about the storm exactly? He said, I will summon the greatest storm ever known. Amos scowled. The last time he said that, he created the Sahara. A storm that large could destroy North America, generating enough chaos energy to give him an almost invincible form. Ooh. So he created the Sahara with a storm. Lovely. What are you talking about? Who is this guy? Amos waved away the question. Come on! I need a name for him other than Fiery Guy. He's obviously one of the gods, I just don't know which one. Amos waved away the question. More important right now, why didn't you sleep with the headrest? I shrugged. It was uncomfortable. I looked at Sadie for support. You didn't use it, did you? Sadie rolled her eyes. Well, of course I did. It was obviously there for a reason. Sometimes I really hate my sister. Ow, that's my foot! Oh, I love those little things that remind you this is a recording. Carter, Amos said. Sleep is dangerous. It's a doorway into the Duat. D-U-A-T. Duat. I'm guessing that's what they used to go from London to New York so quickly. Some sort of netherworld, otherworld, not quite netherworld, but some sort of like middle world type thing where it's like in between life and death type worlds type thing, if that makes sense. I don't think I'm making sense, but lovely, Sadie grumbled. Another strange word. Yes, sorry, Amos said. The Duat is the world of spirits and magic. You know, I should have just let him explain it. Because it's kind of what I was thinking, but yeah, I was having trouble explaining it because I wasn't exactly sure. I was guessing. It's kind of along what I was thinking. The Duat is the world of magic and spirits and magic. It exists beneath the waking world like a vast ocean, with many layers and regions. Okay, a little more complex than I was thinking. We submerged just under its surface last night to reach New York, because travel through the Duat is much faster. Carter, your consciousness also passed through its shallowest currents as you slept, which is how you witnessed what happened in Phoenix. Fortunately, you survived that experience, but the deeper you go into the Duat, the more horrible things you encounter, and the more difficult it is to return. There are entire realms filled with demons, palaces where the gods exist in their pure forms, so powerful their mere presence would burn a human to ashes. There are prisons that hold beings of unspeakable evil, and some chasms so deep and chaotic that not even the gods dare explore them. Now that your powers are stirring, you must not sleep without protection, or you leave yourself open to attacks from the Duat, or unintended journeys through it. The headrest is enchanted to keep your consciousness anchored to your body. You mean I actually did? My mouth tasted like metal. Could he have killed me? Amos's expression was grave. The fact that your soul can travel like that means you are progressing faster than I thought. Faster than should be possible. If the Red Lord had noticed you... The Red Lord? Sadie said. That's the fiery bloke? Amos rose. I must find out more. We can't simply wait for him to find you. And if he releases the storm on his birthday, at the height of his powers... You mean you're going to Phoenix? I could barely get the words out. Amos, that fiery man defeated Dad like his magic was a joke. Now he's got demons and he's getting stronger, and you'll be killed. Amos gave me a dry smile, like he'd already weighed the dangers and didn't need a reminder. His expression reminded me painfully of Dad's. Don't count your uncle out so quickly, Carter. I've got some magic of my own. Besides, I must see what is happening for myself if we're to have any chance at saving your father and stopping the Red Lord. I'll be quick and careful. Just stay here. Muffin will guard you. See? Protective cat creature. Although, why Muffin and not Philip, the albino crocodile? I blinked. The cat will guard us? You can't just leave us here without... What about our training? When I return, Amos promised. Don't worry, the mansion is protected. Just do not leave. Do not be tricked into opening the door for anyone. And whatever happens, do not go into the library. I absolutely forbid it. I will be back by sunset. Ooh, who wants to bet that's the first place Sadie goes? Yeah, Carter might have listened. That statement was just going to want to make Sadie go in there more. I will be back by sunset. I absolutely forbid it. There are some people you just do not say that to? I'll be like Barney and be like, challenge accepted. Before we could protest, Amos walked calmly to the edge of the terrace and jumped. No! Sadie screamed. We ran to the railing and looked over. Below was a 100-foot drop into the East River. There was no sign of Amos. He simply vanished. Philip of Macedonia splashed in his pool. Muffin jumped onto the railing and insisted we pet her. We were alone in a strange mansion, with a baboon, a crocodile, and a weird cat. And apparently the entire world was in danger. Yep, that about sums it up. I looked at Sadie. What do we do now? Sadie crossed her arms. Well, that's obvious, isn't it? We explore the library. Ha! I knew it! Well, I'm going to leave it there. We'll explore the library next time. See you then.